Morlock fans everywhere rejoiced when Inferno #1 revealed that the long-dead Morlock Tommy was not only resurrected, but was also being used in action as part of X-Force's recon team. Tommy is known in the comics as being one of the first Morlocks that was killed by Mr. Sinister's marauders during the Mutant Massacre, but without a doubt, her real claim to fame was in the 90s X-Men animated series, where she was alive and well, living among the Morlocks. She didn't do much during the show, but she definitely stood out due to her unique look and powers, and because of that, she has become probably one of the most popular Morlocks characters ever, even though she really only appeared in that one singular issue where she debuted and died as far as comic books are concerned. But that's all changed now thanks to Krakoa and the power of resurrection, and with Tommy being one of the many fan-favorite mutants who has returned to us, it's only a matter of time before she finally gets the solo series she deserves. Or so I can dream. What I thought I'd do in this video is go over the quote-unquote history of Tommy's character throughout both the comics and the animated series, because even though she was only alive in the one comic book issue, she did show up in some flashbacks and stuff here and there over the years, and it is a little bit interesting to see how the impact of her cartoon character gave her somewhat rejuvenated interest in the X comics over the years, even if it was only in the margins. Tommy's first appearance was in Uncanny X-Men number 210, right at the onset of the Mutant Massacre. Here we see Tommy and her Hellfire goon friend Richard Sammons being attacked by some shadowy figures who would later be revealed to be the Marauders. Richard is struck down by one of Harpoon's energy lances, and even though he isn't quite dead yet, Tommy bails on him, her fear of the situation totally taking over. She runs deep into the tracks at the train depot and slips herself in between one of the train's doors, where she hides while the shadowy marauders come up to finish the job they started with Richard, and Scalphunter shoots him dead. Tommy manages to get her way back down into the Morlock tunnels, where she's sure the marauders have lost her trail, but of course they haven't, and she is incapacitated by one of Harpoon's energy spears as well. Turns out the Marauders needed her in order to lead them to the Morlock tunnel entrance, so by running away, she actually played into their hand, and then Scalphunter finishes the job by shooting poor Tommy while she begs for her life. All in all, it's a pretty gruesome debut and death for Tommy in this issue, and it doesn't really paint her in the best of lights, since she abandoned her friend to die and unintentionally led the Marauders to the tunnels. Then, of course, the Mutant Massacre happens, where the majority of the Morlock population gets killed. In X Factor number 9, Artie Maddox gets a psychic flare of what's happening in the tunnels, and there he sees what I'm pretty sure is Tommy's death. He tries to warn Cameron Hodge about what's going on, but of course he gets ignored, and then the rest is history in terms of the Morlocks meeting their makers. Then Tommy's done in the comics for a long time until she kinda sorta pops back up in Uncanny X-Men number 529 as a hologram that has been cast by Danger. This is the era that the X-Men were living on Utopia, and Scalphunter has been captured and is being held in the brig for rehabilitation. As part of the rehab program, Danger has him reliving the Morlock massacre, except instead of the Morlocks exacting revenge on Scalphunter for having killed them, they're forgiving him, and the hologram of Tommy is the one that's up front and center, absolving him of all his sins. Danger's rehab program doesn't really seem to be doing the trick for old Scalpy though, and Tommy's forgivings fall upon his deaf ears. The next time we see Tommy in the comics is again via Scalphunter, as she shows up in one of his memories in Elektra Volume 4 after he is eaten by a monster on Monster Island. The monster reams through the memories of its victims, and there we get to see Tommy as we know her best, and that is dead on the ground. Her memory form here doesn't have any dialogue or actual plot in this story, but her image here basically serves as the catch-all to represent all the heinous things that Scalphunter did during the Mutant Massacre. Thankfully, that's the last time we ever see Tommy in her dead form, as the next time she shows up, she is alive and kickin' in Hellions number 1. Again, her story is tied to Greycrow here, as we see him peacefully cleaning his guns on the beaches of Krakoa when he is ambushed by a bunch of Morlocks, including Tommy. Apparently, it's the anniversary of the massacre on this day, and the Morlocks have a bit of a bone to pick with him, so they lunge out and attack him in full force. I really like seeing Tommy as part of this Morlock kill squad here. Her powers are inherently passive, so I can't really see what kind of assistance she could lend in the battle, but I can't blame the girl for wanting some revenge either. Even though we don't see the brawl here, it's assumed that Grey Crow fought back and probably won, as there's an interesting story point that develops out of this moment. As he's being drafted onto the Hellions team, Storm retells the version of events from the Council's perspective, and according to them, Scalphunter was the one who attacked the Morlocks on this beach, but in actuality, as we saw, it was the Morlocks who picked the fight with him. I mean, I can't blame Storm for thinking that way, since historically Grey Crow is a heartless bully. Of course, he would probably be the one to start a fight. But what I find interesting here is that Grey Crow doesn't correct her with the truth. He totally could have been like, yo, they jumped me, which was the case, but instead he just takes the blame, which I think was meant to be indicative of his changing nature. Maybe he saw that being drafted to the Hellions was a way of finally being absolved of all his wrongdoings from the past, so he just let it slide. He's still clearly working through his issues though, as an illusionary Tommy shows up to haunt him yet again after the Hellions team is kidnapped by Arcade and Mastermind in Hellions number 10. The whole team is being subjected to their nightmares, and of course with Scalphunter, it always comes back to all the deaths that he has caused, particularly those of the Morlocks. I'm not sure if the panel we're seeing in this issue was the actual outcome of what happened during that beach brawl with the Morlocks, as there are a lot of the same faces here that jumped him, and I don't recall Urg ever being one of his victims, but overall, I think this is just supposed to represent all the Morlocks he's killed over his life, be them the actual ones he killed or not, and so, of course, there's Tommy living her best dead life. Later on in the issue, the dead Morlocks are reanimated and they start biting the flesh off of him, and Tommy is one of the ones doing it, but then thankfully, that's the end of Tommy's ties to Mr. John Grey Crow in the comic books, at least for now. Then that brings us up to speed with what Tommy has been up to. She was most recently seen in Inferno number 1, where she was operating as a recon agent for X-Force. She's shown to be on a stakeout in Paris, where she's watching a team of Orcus agents who are watching Moira's safe house, and as soon as the Orcus team mobilizes, she calls it in to Sage to let her know that something's up. Tommy working as a recon agent for X-Force is actually a brilliant story development for her character because her powers totally lend themselves to that job. Marvel's Handbook informs us that Tommy can render herself totally paper thin, and we see that paper in action in the issues that she debuted and died in after she's running from the Marauders and she slips in between the doors of the train. Working as an X-Force agent, this kind of power would grant Tommy access to all kinds of hard-to-reach places that the mutants might need to get into without raising alarms. It's a passive power, but it comes in handy, particularly on stealth missions. Another ability that Tommy may or may not have in the mainstream 616 universe is camouflage. She never explicitly exhibited it in any of her comic book iterations, nor is it stated in the handbook as one of her official powers, but I think it's pretty clear based on her character design that it was probably always supposed to be the case. The only reason I bring this up though is because it was one of the abilities that she had in the 90s animated series. Tommy's very first appearance was in the Season 1 episode Captive Hearts, which was all about Callisto kidnapping Cyclops and Jean Grey. After the X-Men are alerted of their disappearances, they head down into the Morlock tunnels to find them, and there's Tommy camouflaging into the background as Storm's team walks by her. I think it can be assumed that Tommy was the one who alerted the Morlocks of the X-Men's presence here, hence how they almost got the jump on them. The next time we see her in this episode is after Wolverine rescues the unconscious Cyclops from the holding cell that Callisto has been keeping him in. He hints that he has the hots for Jean here, and he's overheard by Tommy and Callisto and Annalee, who have been hiding out in the shadows. Annalee exploits those romantic feelings later with her empathic abilities, and Wolverine almost kills Cyclops because of it, but he's stopped by Jean herself. Then later, the last time we see Tommy in this episode is when she delivers the lightsabers to Callisto after Storm challenges her to a fight for the Morlock leadership. Storm wins, of course, just like she does in the comics, and Tommy and the rest of the Morlocks have no choice but to accept it. Based on this episode alone, it's clear that in this universe, where Tommy is alive and well, not only is she brave and that she's off doing recon missions by herself, but she's also probably one of Callisto's higher-ranking Morlocks, since she's not really on the front lines as much as the others are, and she's got special responsibilities like bearing the lightsabers. It's a stark contrast to her comic book self, who was, for lack of better words, a total coward. And so now that she's been resurrected, it certainly feels like the writers are invoking the spirit of her animated series counterpart into her new portrayal, which I am totally 100% here for. Tommy showed up for cameo appearances in a few other episodes, but definitely didn't have nearly as much screen time or importance as she did in Captive Hearts. She was in the Season 2 episode Till Death Do Us Part as a mutant who was being terrorized by Graydon Creed's Friends Against Humanity. She and her fellow Morlock Ape were seen being attacked as they fled down the street. They slunk into an alleyway where Ape disguises himself as a trash can and Tommy blends into the brick wall behind her before escaping back down into the Morlock tunnels before the FOH could get them. She shows up again in Season 3's Out of the Past episodes, where she's seen waiting with the other Morlocks for Leech's arrival after he steals a laser gun from Lady Deathstrike. They are attacked by the Reavers and a fight breaks out, and even though we don't see her get nabbed by one of their plasma nets, she is shown to have been captured by them, and she, as well as the other captured Morlocks, fall victim to the Spirit Drinker by having their essences drained from them. The final time we see Tommy is in a handful of Season 4 episodes. She's shown to be one of the many mutants clamoring for a spot on Magneto's new Mutant Paradise Asteroid M during the Sanctuary episodes. She's ironically shown with a bunch of the Marauders during Takeoff, and then is detained along with everybody else by the Genosian magistrates after Magneto tries to free the mutates that are being held captive there. Everyone does eventually make it to space though, and Tommy is seen amongst her fellow mutants just kind of like enjoying life, totally drinking up that Kool-Aid, and she's seen as one of the angered habitants who sides with Fabian Cortez after he frames Gambit and the X-Men for supposedly assassinating Magneto. Cortez subsequently takes control of the asteroid and has the full support of everyone behind him, Tommy included. Eventually, Cortez is exposed for the traitor that he is, and everyone enacts revenge on him, which I am sure Tommy was part of as well, even though she wasn't seen in the mass. Tommy was also present during Leech's fight for his life in the Have Yourself a Morlock Little Christmas episode, but she didn't really do anything aside from stand around in one scene, and then the last time she was ever present again was as one of the residents of the strange town of Skull Mesa in the episode Secrets Not Long Buried, where Cyclops worked to wrench control of the town from Solar's tyrannical rule. For a non-speaking Morlock role, it's needless to say that in 8 episodes, Tommy really got around, so it's no wonder to me why her profile in general grew exceedingly within the X-Men world, particularly amongst fans of the TV show, even though she really only ever had the one singular comic book appearance of her death. So that's Tommy in a nutshell. It's crazy to me when I think of how well known that she is after only having the one appearance in comics. And I mean, let's be real, she's not super well known, but without a doubt, her real saving grace was the TV series. Even though she never spoke a single line, she had a cool enough look and power that it made her stand out, even amongst the other Morlocks. And that's undoubtedly why she has made a significant-ish return to the comics, instead of some of her other Morlock playmates like Glowworm or Scaleface, whose popularity didn't take off at all. I think if Marvel continues using Tommy as a recon agent on the X-Force series, then there is no telling how big her star could grow. It's already been proven through Hellions that fans will fall in love with any character if they are written right, be them an A-list or a D-list character, and the time is ripe for Tommy to earn her stripes. I'd love to know what you think with this character. I obviously really like her, but I'd love to know what you think about her or what kind of stories you think Marvel might be able to use her for, so please feel free to leave me a comment letting me know your thoughts about Tommy. If you like this video, please feel free to also check out my other videos on this channel. I post reviews and spotlights and summaries, and it's all X-Men all the time, every day, so you're bound to find something you like. You can also follow me on social media where I post daily panel scans with discussion or funny little quips that I think up, or you can check out my website, greatxmentations.com, where pretty much all of my content lives in one spot. I want to thank you for stopping by and for sharing your time with me today, and please be sure to come back again soon for more Great X-Mentations.